Tonight, a wild crime spree across Bayside suburbs ends in a siege standoff, 2 police cars rammed.
A Porsche driver stabbed 8 times in a night of terror that stretched from Dandenong to the city.
A mum and her 7-year-old trapped in their home as wild winds lashed Melbourne.
The countdown to the Cup. Big crowds facing a wintry blast. The latest live from Flemington.
Victorian taxpayers set to pick up the $15 million bill for netball's failed sponsorship deal.
And Jetstar under fire as a woman claims she was forced to drag herself from her seat.
Live from Melbourne, 7 News with Rebecca Madden and Mike Amor.
Good evening. Melbourne's run of violent street crime has continued, with police forced to mount a big operation to end a rampage across 3 Bayside suburbs.
The wanted man is accused of a carjacking, ramming 2 police vehicles, breaking into homes and threatening a woman with a knife before he was finally cornered and arrested in Brighton.
Police swarmed a quiet Brighton East cul-de-sac, desperate to end a crime spree across Bayside suburbs. The wanted man had allegedly been breaking into homes, jumping fences, armed with a knife, threatening people.
I heard a bit of screaming early this morning and this afternoon, and an intruder in next door. And my next door neighbour very bravely and chased him out with literally with a hoe, and prodded him out of the driveway and down the street. And the guy was brandishing a knife, so very, very brave lady.
Steve Walter then came face to face with the intruder.
He just said, "Get the effing hell out of my way." But then I saw the knife in his hand, and so I got out of his way, and he went past my house, shouted at the kids to lock the door.
The chase began 2 hours earlier when police tried to intercept a stolen vehicle in Balaclava. Officers became the target. 2 police cars rammed on Carlisle Street as the thief sped off.
That vehicle then continued on and ventured into Elwood, where it then, as a result of possibly the damage caused to the vehicle, that vehicle was dumped, and the male occupant then got out and, brandishing a knife, committed the carjacking on another vehicle and stole that vehicle. That vehicle was then driven out to the Brighton area.
He continued on to Cludon Street and broke into another home.
That was vacant, luckily, thank God.
It took police nearly an hour to end the siege and take the 44-year-old Melton man into custody.
Everyone deserves to feel safe in their own home. And not have this unwanted violence brought into their life.
And Tegan Dolling is in Brighton East tonight. Tegan, it's believed today's rampage could be linked to even more Bayside crime.
Mike, that's because the Audi that was used to ram the 2 police cars was believed to be stolen in an aggravated burglary in Toorak last week. Now, the second car that was stolen today was seen to be driving erratically throughout Elwood, St Kilda, and even on the wrong side of the Nepean Highway here in Brighton. The 44-year-old man is currently under police custody in hospital and he'll be questioned when he's well enough. Mike.
Tegan, thank you.
There are new details on Melbourne's weekend of violence that saw 1 man killed and 5 people left in hospital with stab wounds. Cameron Bowe has the latest. Good evening, Cam. It was even worse than first thought.
Beck, before the stabbings in the city, there was trouble here outside Festival Hall. Police were called to a series of brawls in the street. After a concert, 2 people were arrested. It also follows the revelation that a shooting has been linked to a violent carjacking at Dandenong. This brutal ambush was an act of retaliation, payback for a shooting. The 53-year-old Porsche driver was stabbed 8 times. His passengers, believed to be the man's girlfriend and his son, terrorised. Minutes earlier, the driver allegedly fired a gun at a house party for his daughter at Dandenong North. 2 carloads of partygoers armed with knives and machetes hunted them down at the petrol station. The Porsche was driven into the city. 3 men were arrested. The gun has yet to be found.
The young men who are out there and carrying these types of weapons really need to understand that it's going to end in tragedy for themselves or someone else.
Police are still investigating if the same men were involved in a brawl on Burke Street that left a 20-year-old Cranbourne man dead and the stabbing of 2 young men on King Street.
These incidents, as tragic as they are generally isolated, and I would say that our planning would cater and be reviewed after following these instances as well.
But the violence didn't end when the weekend was over. In the city this morning, another attempted carjacking. The driver of an Audi was confronted by two armed men after a minor collision. A truckie saw what was happening and tried to help stop the getaway. Police seized a meat cleaver and a wheel brace. This time, the two suspects were quickly arrested. Cameron Bowe, 7 News.
A mum and her 7-year-old daughter have been left trapped in their Callista house as wild winds lash Melbourne. Rochelle Brown has the latest, and Rochelle, their home took a big hit.
Mike, the pair got the fright of their lives as wind gusts of up to 128 kilometres an hour battered the city, causing this massive tree to fall onto their home. Now, the tree from the neighbouring property crushed the roof of their home, causing so much damage they had to get out through a side window. It also destroyed a shed. The mother and daughter were shaken, but thankfully unharmed. The SES has assessed the damage and the home is considered still too dangerous to enter at this stage.
The back of the house really is destroyed more than anything. This much rain and this much wind, this is what you get.
How did you feel arriving home to that, though?
It was a bit of a disaster. I don't know what I'm going to do with it now. I think it's going to need a bigger man than me.
This was just one incident in a night of wild weather right across the city. The SES took almost 600 calls for help. 12,000 homes lost power. And Mike, it might be spring, but there's more of this to come with thunderstorms and hail predicted tomorrow.
Oh dear. Rochelle Brown, thank you.
And that wild weather is closing in on Flemington, with racegoers warned to brace for the coldest Cup day since 1995. Today, the traditional Cup Parade returned to the city streets, giving Melbourne's tourism industry a much-needed cash injection.
Music to Melbourne's ears as the city welcomes back the Cup Eve Parade after a 2-year spell.
It's just going to be wonderful.
The Newey crew is down from Newcastle, just some of the tens of thousands of tourists calling Melbourne home for Cup Week.
Ready to get on a winner. And the tip is, don't bet on anything during the day, right? Just enjoy yourself.
And bring a jacket. The Weather Bureau is tipping a max of just 14, the coldest Cup day since Doriemus won in 1995.
If it rains, we've had it before, we'll keep our patrons safe and they'll have a great time.
They'd have to be idiots not to turn up. It's the best show in the world.
Gay Waterhouse will saddle up 2 runners in tomorrow's great race as the Queen of Australian Racing shoots for her 2nd Melbourne Cup win.
Well, I've got one that wants dry ground and one that wants rain, so I'm almost cut in half.
Music legend Colin Hay will perform in front of an expected crowd of 75,000.
I love singing the song to large numbers of people.
While swimmer Cody Simpson will return to stage to belt out the national anthem.
Couldn't be asked to do it somewhere more prestigious.
Our hospitality industry is already on a winner, with the Cup Carnival boosting hotel occupancy to 80%, well up from 22% at the same time last year.
So you've got people staying 4 or 5 nights, and importantly, 30% of the audience that come to the Melbourne Cup are from interstate or international.
More than 55,000 dresses are sold in the lead up to this carnival. I take that as a key economic indicator.
But racegoers can expect rideshare prices to soar by as much as 114% tomorrow.
We can definitely expect to see some level of price surging.
We're loving Melbourne and we can't wait for tomorrow. It's going to be fabulous.
Sarah Jones, 7 News.
A 23-year-old Australian has been identified as one of the victims of South Korea's crowd crush disaster. The young film production assistant was just days away from celebrating her birthday.
Grace Rushed, a week shy of 24 years old. Vibrant, adventurous, obsessed with travel and posting adventures in Bali, unaware her young life would end the following day.
These are my friends.
That's Grace, dressed for the Halloween party in Seoul's nightlife district.
I witnessed my friends being crushed at Itaewon.
Nathan Tavaniti found his friend's body hours later.
And then it took so long for emergency services to arrive.
Grace was the only Australian killed, a film production assistant who grew up in Sydney. Her family spoke of their gorgeous angel who lit up a room with her infectious smile, always cared about others, an incredible human being, our life of the party.
Just a never-ending joy to be around her. Just her character made you feel happy when you were with her. You know, she had that effect.
The number of dead now exceeds 150. Seoul's police force is under scrutiny for its lack of crowd control.
This tragedy has impacted people in South Korea in particular, but it's also impacted in the harshest way possible one Australian family.
The Department of Foreign Affairs continues to liaise with the family, and South Korea's government is also offering assistance to victims, although for the moment it's not known what form that might take. The priority right now is to bring Grace home. She recently posted, "When you go, nothing goes with you, so you may as well enjoy your time here." It is only the smallest of comforts to her family that, at least, she did that. Robert Ovadia, 7 News.
The United States is preparing to deploy 6 B-52 bombers capable of carrying nuclear weapons to Australia. It's a move aimed at deterring threats from China.
We engage with our friends in the United States alliance from time to time.
It provides support to us. It bolsters our security position in an uncertain time.
A $100 million facility is being built south of Darwin to host the aircraft.
Victorian taxpayers are set to pick up the bill for netball's failed sponsorship deal with billionaire Gina Rinehart.
The Andrews government has committed $15 million to help bail out the debt-stricken national team.
In the fourth quarter of an election campaign comes a funding announcement claiming to score for 2 teams.
Great day for netball and a great day for tourism.
Victorian taxpayers picking up what Hancock Prospecting put down. $15 million over the next 4 and a bit years. A deal signed in almost record time and just in time for Netball Australia, deep in debt.
We were absolutely delighted to be able to work with them really closely and really quickly to create this partnership opportunity, which is unlike any that we've done before.
The sponsorship means Visit Victoria will appear on the national uniform, similar to Tasmania's multi-million-dollar sponsorship of Hawthorn matches in that state.
I know that the girls found out just an hour ago or something, so they are very excited they are.
The Netball Grand Final is also guaranteed to be in Melbourne next year, plus 5 test matches over 4 years. The deal announced on the same day, this year's state budget deficit grew by almost $2 billion to $9.68 billion.
Can we afford it?
Yes, we absolutely can afford to do everything, and we have to make sure that we do everything we possibly can to have as many people in work, as many tourism businesses thriving.
I'm quizzical as to whether or not the Premier's making this during an election as an election pledge the day before caretaker.
Visit Victoria made the first move here, contacting netball bosses last week when Gina Rinehart's sponsorship was pulled. Netball Australia says other states also made sponsorship bids.
These types of conversations about sponsorship sign-ups and renewals can take many weeks, if not months. This one is certainly the exception to the rule.
A lifeline decided in a week. Blake Johnson, 7 News.
Australia's peak gas organisation is calling for a national summit to address critical energy shortages. It's warning a cap on prices would stifle investment in the transition to renewables as the Prime Minister faces pressure to intervene in the markets.
At a Melbourne childcare centre, just in time for the morning song and to read an appropriately titled book.
I was Prime Minister.
Now that he is having to write the book on dealing with spiralling energy prices.
Clearly price is still a major issue that we need to deal with.
There's no sense saying that there's a problem. He's been elected to fix the problem.
And fixing it is the problem.
The pressures are obvious, the solutions are less so.
One of the solutions being considered a price cap on gas, forcing producers to sell for about $10 a gigajoule, way below what they're selling it for overseas.
We should not be competing against the world for something that comes out of our ground, nor should we be paying European prices for gas when we're not in Europe.
But gas producers warn capping prices could cause a bigger problem than it solves.
Market intervention, as extreme as a price cap, does make investors question
their future investments.
Gas producers are now calling for a national summit, putting the industry and governments in the same room to thrash out a long-term solution together.
The best solution is one where everyone's around the table.
The Victorian government wants a national gas reserve based on Western Australia's to ensure supply, while New South Wales suggests the answer is money.
I was obviously bitterly disappointed that the Commonwealth Government didn't put a cent of cost of living relief to support families with their electricity bills during the budget.
And if no solution's found, pressure for that relief will continue into the next budget in May. Mark Riley, 7 News.
The Reserve Bank efforts to put the brakes on the economy have failed to slow down retail spending. It's just hit a record high, all but guaranteeing another interest rate rise tomorrow.
For homeowners on Halloween night, the biggest scare is yet to come. Interest rates tipped to rise again tomorrow, the 7th increase in a row.
We are expecting a 0.25% hike from the RBA. However, they could surprise us, going back to a double hike.
New retail figures fueling speculation of a bigger increase to the cash rate. Spending hit a record $35 billion in September, particularly on fashion and food. There's an argument we're actually buying less. It's just costing us more.
Part of the strength in the headline retail figures is just a sign that inflation is very high.
A rate rise of 0.25% on a mortgage of $500,000 would add an extra $74 a month or $760 in total rate rises this year. A 0.5% rise would add $150 a month or a whopping $834 since May.
The advice is to refinance if you can. The average owner-occupier is paying 5.3%, but some lenders are still offering home loan rates below 4%.
They could potentially save over $12,000 in interest over the next 2 years.
There will be some looking forward to the RBA decision, savers with money in the bank.
I'm a pensioner, so yeah, every little bit counts.
Winners and losers decided before the cup is run. Laura Dimmick, 7 News.
Well, there is major drama on the eve of the Melbourne Cup. Tim Watson, one of Lloyd Williams' runners, is out.
That's right, Beck. Port the PN. It was scratched with the vets this morning, and there's no doubt now that at least 2 other Cup contenders may also be scratched. Andrew McCormick has the fallout from Flemington, and Andrew, Racing Victoria is taking a hardline stance.
Well, Tim, a defiant VRC insists they won't be backing down. That's despite fierce criticism from one of Australia's leading trainers surrounding what are the strictest pre-race protocols anywhere in the world. Less than 24 hours out from tomorrow's Cup, still 2 runners are in doubt. They'll face vet checks tomorrow morning. The lead up to this race in the past fortnight, there's been a number of high-profile scratchings, and the final field reduced to 23 this morning after another scratching. As sporting worlds collided, cash was king at today's call of the card.
$850 the win, Cash. That's a bet.
But behind the scenes, Racing Victoria vets were hard at work. The Lloyd Williams' own Point Nepean scratched. The horse ruled out because of an elevated blood test. 2 other Cup contenders to undergo last-minute inspections tomorrow morning. A sleepless night for Graham Begg and his runner Luna Flair.
It's a 50-50 call, and rest assured if she's not right, she won't go to the races.
The Cup is the only trophy missing for Kieran Maher. Interpretation, one of 5 Cup runners for his stable, also faces a vet check tomorrow morning. He says Racing Victoria's hardline stance might have gone too far.
They'll definitely look at it, yeah. I'd say there's probably some things that they could change, yeah.
The vet crackdown was sparked by the deaths of 7 Cup horses in 8 years.
We just can't have any horses running in it that are under any doubt.
It's important that we keep the race as safe as it possibly can, and we'll keep doing that. We're not going to waver from that.
Andrew McCormack, 7 News.
Also ahead in sport, we'll check in with father-son combination looking to strike gold in the Cup, plus the Bombers land 2 excitement machines ahead of the national draft. Mad Max sets a new Formula 1 record and a shock upset in the World Cup. I'll see you both again.
It's been a few. Thanks, Tim. One of our airlines is in the firing line again. Up next, this is why a woman says she was forced to drag herself off a plane.
Also tonight, a disaster unfolding in India as a historic bridge goes down.
A big change for Bunnings as it ditches tradition.
And later, special reports NAPLAN testing exposes a worrying problem and a big supermarket's plea to fight price rises.
And Cup Day is shaping up to be one of the coldest in nearly 3 decades. I'll have the latest soon in 7 News.
The Department of Defence has been caught up in a ransomware attack. Hackers targeted the e-communication system ForceNet used by military personnel and their families. The ADF says personal details have not yet been compromised.
It may have been around 30 to 40,000 records that they held. We're not saying that that's what is out there.
Defence is still investigating the scale of the cyber attack.
A woman with spina bifida says she'll never fly Jetstar again after being left to drag herself off a plane. Natalie Curtis claims the budget airline refused to provide an in-flight wheelchair unless she paid for it.
A special birthday trip overseas. From Townsville to Singapore, Natalie got on and off planes using a wheelchair provided by Jetstar until she arrived in Bangkok.
There was a language barrier, and when we arrived, there was a lady with a notepad saying that we had to pay something for a chair.
Natalie's wheelchair is too wide, so she needed what's known as an aisle chair to get from her seat to the door. She was told it would take 40 minutes and it wouldn't be free.
I've never had to pay to use a chair in any of my travels.
So Natalie refused payment and says what happened next was humiliating.
So they all just stood around for a while, and then the option that was left was for me to get on the floor and crawl.
Her friend Natasha filmed as she made her way down 8 rows.
They did obviously try to offer to lift her up and carry her, but if they drop her, that will be 10 times worse.
In a statement, Jetstar says a miscommunication resulted in the delay of an aisle chair being made available at the gate on arrival. At no point was an aisle chair withheld due to a request for payment.
Didn't really comprehend it. I'm like, no, I'm not paying to be able to get off this plane.
Natalie has been offered a full refund of her flight and additional compensation.
It was, extremely humiliating. So I definitely don't want anyone else to go through what I had to go through.
Shining a light so it never happens again. Katrina Blowers, 7 News.
An Australian kidnapped in Central Africa has been released by his abductors. Jerome Huguenot disappeared on Friday while working for the Sahara Conservation Fund in Chad. The country's interim president confirming his return on Twitter. Huguenot is a veterinarian who holds dual Australian and French citizenship.
More than 130 people have been killed in a bridge collapse in India.
The structure, that's more than 100 years old, gave way under the weight of a large crowd celebrating a Hindu festival.
The twisted ruins of the collapsed bridge droop into the river below. Adults and children struggling to hang on. It happened in the early evening. People quickly gathered to try and help, swimming out into the Machu River to rescue survivors. Some, including children, were rushed to local hospitals. A chaotic and deadly end to days of celebrations. All of them fell on top of one another, this man says. The bridge was busier than normal, carrying 500 people, marking the end of Diwali, the Hindu festival of light. The 19th century structure had only just reopened after renovations. Local emergency services and the Indian military still treating this as a rescue operation. The death toll seemingly certain to rise.
This is so devastating. I can't even speak. There are a lot of children.
Hugh Whitfield, 7 News.
Bunnings is going digital and ditching its popular catalogue. It means households will no longer see the paper brochures in their mailboxes. Now the company's marketing will be done through apps, emails and social media. Bunnings says it will reach more customers, launching the first online version with a Christmas gift guide.
Police are cracking down on a massive COVID con. Ahead on 7 News, arrests in every state over a multi-million-dollar taxpayer rip-off.
Plus, the suburbs linked to a major haul of illegal guns.
And Melbourne's in for a scary night. Estelle Greeping is in Carlton.
Beck, like it or loathe it, Halloween is here and more Victorians are embracing it than ever before. Details next.
More than 500 illegal guns have been seized as part of a national police operation. In Victoria, 35 people were arrested in suburbs including Brunswick, Montmorency and Roxburgh Park.
Intelligence comes from the community. There are people who know these people out there. There are family members and others who will know people who are in possession of firearms.
In one raid, 48 firearms were seized from a home in McLeod.
A 7 News investigation has revealed an $80 million COVID con, with fraudsters stealing taxpayer money meant for struggling businesses. They were paid thousands of dollars each by applying for pandemic hardship relief.
It's the new COVID lockdown
Police! Search warrant! Open the door!
that has fraudsters fearing a fresh wave of a very different kind. Not another strain of the virus. This time it's heavily armed police spreading across the suburbs, catching those pocketing cash that was meant for COVID-crippled businesses. Documents obtained under Freedom of Information reveal for the first time the extraordinary scale of the fraud. A staggering $82 million rorted with more than 7,000 fake applications for a Service New South Wales micro-business support grant. The scheme was launched in July last year to support small businesses impacted by lockdowns, worth $1,500 a fortnight. Eligible businesses were meant to prove they'd suffered a 30% drop in revenue due to COVID restrictions. But within 3 months, Treasury detected a spike in applications, and 10 days later, all payments were suspended. A month later, police formed a strike force. But raids weren't just being undertaken in Sydney. Thieves in every state soon heard how easy it was to cash in on money meant for New South Wales businesses.
This scam was anything but sophisticated. In fact, it's breathtaking how simplistic it was. 7 News understands in some cases even blank application forms were being processed and approved by Service New South Wales.
Evan Batten, 7 News.
Police in California say an intruder who broke into the home of US Speaker Nancy Pelosi had been planning it for some time. 42-year-old David DePape was armed with zip ties, duct taped and a hammer when he attacked Speaker Pelosi's husband, fracturing his skull.
This is horrible, and my heart goes out to Paul Pelosi, and I hope he has a full recovery.
Threats against members of the US Congress have surged more than 960% since 2016. Australians are increasingly getting into the Halloween spirit, with the day bringing a $430 million boost to businesses.
Estelle Greepink is in Carlton tonight, and Estelle, the streets have been crawling with witches and skeletons and superheroes.
Well, Beck, I've seen lots of creepy costumes here tonight on the streets of Carlton, and probably there's a similar picture going on in many suburbs right across Melbourne. The trick-and-treaters have been walking along the street for several hours now, and a lot of houses have told me they're already out of lollies and chocolate. So the rain isn't dampening Halloween fans' spirits down here, and now they're in for a very scary night.
It's the spookiest night of the year, and trick-or-treaters are set for a fright.
It's amazing. It's really spectacular.
Melburnians embracing Halloween in bigger numbers than ever before.
It's going to be a big party in Marshall Road, Airport West.
In Williams Landing, the Mitchell family has transformed their home for a good cause.
We're raising money for the Wyndham Health Foundation to purchase a CPR device machine.
This year's Jurassic Park theme, complete with custom car.
It's more just an excuse to have fun, dress up and get to know your community better.
After 2 years of COVID, Costume Palace was busier than ever.
It's just flat out here. Triple busy.
While in Elstonwick, Ripponlea Estate became a house of horrors. The centuries-old tradition isn't just for kids. This Berwick bride and groom getting into the spirit for a wicked wedding. At the Melbourne Ascarium, jack-o'-lanterns cast a ghostly glow. The carved pumpkins making for a tasty treat. Estelle Greepink, 7 News.
The NAPLAN tests have delivered some bad news. Up next on 7, the students who aren't making the grade and why.
Also, millions for a test run on a 4-day working week for Victorian workers.
$1 billion lotto jackpot up for grabs.
And later, after sport, new tactics as supermarkets fight to keep prices down. The Greens have become the first party to financially back the 4-day working week, promising $60 million towards a trial.
This policy is about gender equity, ensuring that women can remain in the workforce and ensuring that we can offer a better work-life balance for the thousands of workers who are quite exhausted post-pandemic and want more flexible work conditions.
Grants would be available to businesses in the private sector who have a turnover below $50 million. The public sector will also be included.
Soaring global wheat prices boosted shares in one major Australian company today. Here's Gemma Acton.
Thank you. It was a robust start to the week for local shares, the ASX 200 adding 78 points to close at 6,864. GrainCorp was a big winner today. That was following a spike in global wheat prices. And after slipping over the weekend, the Aussie dollar has steadied today at around 64.2 US cents, while iron ore prices have sunk to a 2-year low. And Australians have traditionally preferred variable mortgages. The exception was during the pandemic when rates were below 2% and almost half of new borrowers opted to fix. Last month, just 4% did. So that leaves many households closely watching the Reserve Bank's decision tomorrow.
Thank you, Gemma. Victorian children have seen their NAPLAN results go backwards more than any other state in key areas.
It's being put down to long COVID lockdowns, but the results are not as bad as some expected.
Self-styled as the education state, Victoria's recent NAPLAN results tell a different story.
They are slightly down on pre-pandemic levels.
Numeracy, grammar and spelling saw the biggest falls. In spelling, Year 9s went backwards over the past 12 months. Year 5s also scored lower in grammar compared to last year. That same group also saw their numeracy scores fall, and Year 9 reading levels dropped to the lowest on record.
We still have a lot of students who are they're beginning their secondary school career and then in Year 9 that just don't have adequate levels of reading.
Experts say the results follow homeschooling children through the pandemic.
She went really well. We were really worried, but with all the teachers' help, she pulled through.
The gender gap is also growing, with Year 9 boys falling behind girls in reading across the nation.
We know that there's a challenge there. There's also areas where we have to do better.
Despite going backwards on previous years, Victoria still ranked first or second in 8 out of 10 subjects.
Kind of nervous when I got the envelope, but when I read it, I felt pretty proud of myself.
Year 7 and 9 students also improved in writing. It's the first year the test was taken entirely online.
We've been on a teaching and learning journey to really improve our capability so we can target each student's individual needs.
Kathleen O'Connor, 7 News.
Americans are lining up for a chance at winning $1 billion in Powerball. It's the 5th biggest jackpot in history. If there is a winner tomorrow, they will most likely take the lump sum option, which means they will collect just under $500 million. We thought $160 million.
I know, we've got about that. Gee whiz. Well, Tim Watson is here now with Sport. Tim, there is a cup runner ready to take it up to those internationals.
There is, Beck. It's a born and bred local too, ready to cause an upset. Up next, why the familiar Friedman name will look to blossom on Cup Day. The twin brothers looking to follow in their father's footsteps at the Bombers. A rare blemish from India leaves one of the world's best cricketers red-faced, and the video game move pulled off to perfection in NASCAR. Welcome back. Aussie horse Realm of Flowers is looming as the biggest danger to Melbourne Cup favourite Deauville legend. The father-son combination of Anthony and Sam Friedman hoping to pull off a racing miracle.
A Friedman with a Melbourne Cup runner. It's almost a Flemington tradition.
We've got a rich family history with it, with Lee training 5 winners, and my great-grandfather rode a Melbourne Cup winner. It's been a race that, I've grown up watching my whole life, and you dream of one day training a horse good enough to win the race.
At just 26, Sam Freedman is getting a chance to live out that dream sooner than most. In training partnership with dad, Anthony, the pair plan to take it right up to the international favourites with homegrown mare Realm of Flowers, trained at the Freedman's state-of-the-art Pinecliff facility near Mornington.
She's there to run a big race. We've felt that her whole campaign's been centred around Tuesday. She'll certainly make her presence felt.
Preferring to stay away from today's parade, Sam will also be looking for a quiet spot come 3 o'clock tomorrow.
Quite a nervous, fidgety person watching. I like to watch it on my own, so even the old man and I won't watch a race in the same rooms.
No easy task with 80,000 at Flemington. Danny O'Brien knows a thing or two about homegrown champions.
Vow declares in as good a form as he was the year he won it, and our other horse, Young Vert, is an emerging stayer that has had a really good lead-up form to the race.
They'll all be chasing three-time Cup winner Karen McAvoy aboard favourite Deauville Legend. Have you ridden a favourite in a Cup before?
I don't think I have. Actually, I was saying this to my wife the other night that it's just a different approach going in, on the outright favourite, but the fundamentals won't change. He's a deserved favourite.
I'm terrified of the international horses, but still they've got to come here and do it.
And Deauville Legend remains the heavy favourite at the moment, the second shortest Melbourne Cup favourite since Farlap all the way back in 1930. Currently around the $3.60 mark, but just one in the past 16 favourites have actually won the Melbourne Cup, something to keep an eye on there. Montefilia without a fight and Realm of Flowers following the market. Of course, we just heard from Sam Freedman then at the $11 mark. Both Gay Waterhouse's runners then next at the $15. If you want to follow the smart money, well, the call of the card is where you want it to be today. One professional punter stands to win $1.8 million if outsider Numerian gets up after forking out $20,000 on the $91 chance. Another outsider, High Emotion, also attracted some interest, while the biggest bet of the day at Crown, $135,000 on the nose of the favourite, standing to win a cool $500,000, Tim. Now, as for the all-important track update, a soft 6, I'm told, at the moment. Of course, a close watch on that if the rain comes tomorrow with a potential downgrade.
Australia must win big tonight against Ireland at the Gabba if they're to stay alive in the T20 World Cup. Last night, Virat Kohli's shocker triggered India's first loss of the tournament. He was caught on the boundary for just 12 before dropping a sitter against South Africa.
No, there's a fielder there. There's a fielder. Oh, he's put it down. How could he put that down? Was that the game? And this is one of the best.
The tournament favourites blowing numerous chances in the field. The Proteas won by 5 wickets. The Bombers have landed an early recruiting win ahead of the national draft. Twins Owen Jr. and Jaden Davey have nominated Essendon under the father-son rule, set to follow in the footsteps of their father Owen Sr., who played 100 games for the club. The brothers are both highly talented small forwards, and while Jaden sat out the year with a knee injury, Owen Jr. could attract a bid inside the top 20. Red Bull's Max Verstappen has set the record for the most wins in a Formula One season after victory in Mexico. Daniel Ricciardo recovered from a 10-second penalty to finish 7th and is content with not having a driver's seat next year.
Let's say I'm not done, but a little bit, it'll look a bit different. A bit of time away from a race seat will actually do me good, and then try to, let's say, rebuild on something for 24.
Verstappen crossed for his 14th victory this year, overtaking Michael Schumacher and Sebastian Vettel, who previously held the record. And this has to go down as the wildest finish to a NASCAR race in history.
It was a video game move off into turn 3.
Take a look at what he did.
I have never seen anything like that before in my life.
Ross Chastain used the wall to gain speed, leaping from 10th to 5th and to secure a spot in the championship round. A little bit of pinball and manoeuvring going on there. And it's a huge day of racing, obviously, tomorrow. Not only the Cup at Flemington, though, but Sydney is launching its latest multi-million-dollar race, the Big Dance, and that will be live and free here on 7.
Looking forward to that. Thank you. Well, as supermarkets face rising price pressure, Coles has told suppliers to cut their costs instead of hitting shoppers with more cost of living pain.
The grocery giant is determined to keep shelf prices down, now offering extra discounts to its Flybuys customers.
It's never been more important in a trip to the supermarket than to stay alert on how to save money.
Well, it's more expensive, yeah, definitely.
The rising cost of groceries has supermarkets thinking outside the square.
We're giving customers instant discounts off products. So rather than giving points, we're giving actual dollars off.
At Coles, Flybuy members on certain products can save from $1 to $10. Customers swipe their Flybuy cards at the checkout if they're interested.
Well, I wish they were a lot lower, that's for sure.
But I quite like the system as it is, because I save my points and I cash them in.
Shoppers encouraged to spend as Coles suppliers are told to tighten their belts.
We need to make sure that our suppliers are making sure that we are all managing inflationary pressures together.
Coles has written to suppliers warning price rise requests could be negotiated, even blocked. Instead, it says suppliers should reduce their own costs, including farmers.
Well, I think it's very disappointing. Farmers don't have a great deal of costs to cut. They are already stretched.
A cost of living crunch, particularly ahead of Christmas, leaving supermarkets scrambling to retain customer loyalty. The Flybuys promotion begins on Wednesday through to the end of November if you pay attention.
That's a good incentive.
Chris Marr, 7 News.
Jane Bunn joins us now. Jane, no pressure, but we all want to know how it'll look tomorrow.
Well, Mike, it's looking like an afternoon that wouldn't be out of place in July. I'll have the latest on the wintry blast heading our way next.
Tonight on the latest from 7 News, a lesson in crowd control. We'll speak to an expert on how to prevent deadly crushes. Just what we needed, the double whammy of interest rates and health premiums going up. And the price of keeping Pacific neighbours on side, but is it paying off? When it breaks, we'll have it at 11:20.
Hello again. We are still on track to experience one of our coldest cup days in nearly 3 decades. Last night, a northerly wind howled. A beacon off St Kilda gusted 128 k's an hour. An isolated destructive gust in a thunderstorm. Now, as that struck, the temperature jumped back up into the low 20s. But this afternoon, temperatures tumbled. The city has gone from 22 to just 13. The rain is coming down from the northwest, so the radar looks more impressive than what's actually reaching the ground. It evaporates on its way down in the dry air. Cold air slowly spread through, but at least the change comes with an easing of the wind. Overall, Melbourne's nights were a degree above average in October. Our days were half a degree below average. La Nina stops at warming up when there's rain to our north. Our rain was exceptional, 149 millimetres. That's our 5th wettest October on record. Victoria had 8 long-running stations that set a new record for October rain. Now, one of those was Bendigo, 240 millimetres. Most of today's wet weather is over the far southwest and also the northeast with hit and miss thunderstorms. They brought 33 millimetres to Wodonga in a short time. Then they had another one. They're severe in the yellow zone now. There is a big cold front. A climate driver called Sam has gone negative, letting the front extend well into the north. The split in the high pressure from here to there means there is access to tropical moisture. So there is a lot of regions in eastern Australia getting another significant drink. Now tomorrow, our air will be coming straight up from Antarctica. Snow could fall as low as 800 metres above sea level. That's well down on the ranges in November. It's cold, wet and windy tomorrow. Nearly all districts are on river flood watch as this is yet another widespread weather system. Around the nation tomorrow, just an early shower for Sydney, then it's sunny. Chilly air across the southeast along with conditions we would usually expect in winter. Rain and the risk of storms in Brisbane, dry in Perth. To Victoria, Victoria, bleak, just a month out from summer. Widespread showers, cold enough for wintry hail, rumbles of thunder, breezy winds feeling bitter. Closer in, isolated activity in the morning, then watch it fill in and increase for the afternoon. That's widespread showers along with rumbles of thunder and some wintry hail. So expect long dry breaks in the morning, 14 is the top. The afternoon, bitter and wet, 11 degrees for the big race. The downbursts can have tiny pellets of ice in them. On the 8-day outlook, showers do continue on Wednesday and some into Thursday too, both 15. But have a look at the second half of the outlook. We're heading back up into the 20s. There's lots of bright sunshine. There's nice weather on the horizon. So 14, that's the top tomorrow. Lots of showers, particularly in the afternoon when there's actually likely to be some wintry hail.
Oh dear. High heels will be fun. Thanks, Jane. And that's 7 News
Radio,
for this Monday.
For now from the 7 News team. Good night.